Voters in 3 Congolese cities known for being opposition's strongholds are not allowed to participate in Sunday's presidential election. A male campaigner seeks to end female genital mutilation in Kenya's Maasai community. And can artificial intelligence help doctors make better decisions? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. We begin tonight with chaos on the streets of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Security forces in eastern DRC fired live rounds and tear gas on Thursday to scatter demonstrators who burned tires and attacked Ebola centers in protest at their exclusion from Sunday's presidential election. The Electoral Commission announced Wednesday that it was cancelling voting in the December 30th election in the cities of Beni, Butembo, and their surrounding areas due to an ongoing Ebola outbreak and militia violence. Speaking at a news conference, Pierre Lumbi, the campaign director for Lumukha, the opposition coalition behind presidential candidate Martin Fayulu, called on the Electoral Commission to reverse their decision to cancel voting in the 3 cities which are opposition strongholds to outgoing President Joseph Kabila. On Thursday, Lumbi called on citizens to hold a nationwide general strike on Friday to protest the exclusion of 3 cities from their presidential poll.
Par cette solidarité,
in solidarity with the eastern cities, Lamuka asks all Congolese people to categorically refuse to obey this decision, which is illegal in line with Article 28 of the Constitution, and calls for a general strike in the whole of the Republic this Friday, December 28.
Well, the election to replace Kabila, who has governed since replacing his assassinated father in 2001, was originally to take place in 2016, but has been repeatedly delayed. Now, for more on the situation in the DRC, VOA reporter Abdurrahman Dia is standing by live via Skype from Kinshasa. Good evening, Abdurrahman.
Good evening, Vincent.
Yes, now, from what we're witnessing there, do you get the sense that people are concerned these elections actually might not take place?
Well, people are still asking questions and wondering what would be the next statement from the Electoral Commission. We still have 3 days to go, and with the way it's been going the past few days, people always wake up expecting that some kind of a statement. So people are really not knowing very much where they are heading. A lot of anger boiling also when you talk to people. But as you said earlier, it's mostly in the part where the election has been delayed, Beni especially, where people have come out and in protest all over. It's 1.2 million people who will not be allowed to vote on Sunday.
And that's a substantial number. Now, Beni had been dealing with the Ebola crisis in that region for some time now. Does the Electoral Commission explain why that was not determined earlier on, that perhaps an election cannot happen there? Why announce it just a few days, I mean, literally yesterday?
Absolutely, and that is also a question people keep asking. But if you remember last week, in his statement, Corneille Nangaa, the president of the Electoral Commission, cited Kinshasa as the main reason, but he also talked about Ebola and the insecurity as well. But he did not basically say that it was the main reason why it was postponed for a week. Now he's coming out and saying that there will be no votes in those 3 cities, which basically people are trying to put the dots together. And for the opposition, there is no doubt it is a way for the Electoral Commission to suppress votes, because they think, especially the Fayulu people, they think they would win those 3 cities handedly.
Now, we heard about these riots in the city of Beni, that there were actually cases where rioters ransacked the Ebola center. What are some of the concerns at this point?
It is very concerning, because if people go there and ransack the center, there are risks of that the disease could spread even more not only in Beni City, but in other parts of eastern DRC in the North Kivu, and people basically moving around. So there are definitely health issues and risks, but this showed the anger of the people of Beni, saying that why them, why not others, because there are other parts of eastern DRC that are facing the Ebola outbreak, but they did not get excluded from Sunday's vote. So that's something they don't understand. Whether that was the right response to go and ransack the Ebola center is another question.
Well, so close to the election, to see all these calls for nationwide protests, we really cannot be sure this election will take place. You know, Abdurrahman, thank you very much for taking care of this for us. Stay safe, my friend. Stay safe. Appreciate it. That's Abdurrahman Dia reporting from Kinshasa for the Voice of America. Now, as the headline-grabbing political news continues to come out of the DRC, we thought now would be a good time to focus on the ordinary citizens of that country. On today's episode of our We Are Congolese series, we meet Lucy Mujinane, who talks about the hopes she has for her country and what she expects from the upcoming election.
De ma part, messieurs les journalistes, être congolais, c'est d'abord ne pas avoir une double nationalité selon notre constitution, dans son article 10, né d'une mère congolaise, d'un père congolais, avoir l'amour de notre parti, avoir un civisme d'abord fiscal, politique, et aimer notre pays en général, et aimer aussi ce qui nous conduisent, donc les enfants, leur maman, tel que l'habitude, mais c'est les journalistes. Je n'aime pas ce qui se passe parce que comme on est à la période électorale, donc des troubles, des soulèvements, je n'aime pas aussi des manipulations politiques parce que chez nous d'abord, là où on est, nous sommes dans le milieu qui est apolitique. Alors je n'aime pas la manipulation des enfants dans des activités purement politiques. Monsieur les journalistes, la faute incombe à tous les deux camps parce que ce sont donc dans les deux cas le parti de l'opposition et l'autre de la majorité présidentielle, car tous les deux partis recourent souvent aux enfants à conflit avec la loi, mais c'est les journalistes. Parce que l'enfant, on fait recours, par exemple, quand il y a des meetings, on appelle les enfants, on voit les enfants à conflit avec la loi, injurier et les gens qui tiennent leur meeting. On les utilise pour brûler, insulter, huer les politiciens dans leurs meetings. Alors je vois que c'est mal. Le Congo, après les élections, je vois un Congo nouveau, un pays émergent. Par rapport au programme de mon candidat que je compte voter une fois élu par la population de la République démocratique du Congo, par rapport aussi à son programme et par rapport aussi au code minier 5% gagnant-gagnant. Et je vois qu'on aura à bénéficier quelque chose par rapport à la fois passée. Et moi, en tant qu'enseignant, je vois, je lis, il y a la gratuité des enseignements. Et il y a aussi la prise en charge des enseignants, alors ça m'a beaucoup.
On to West Africa now. In an exclusive interview with VOA, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari spoke with Aliyu Mustafa, managing editor of VOA's House of Service, about security, the economy, and corruption as the country prepares for a February presidential election. Aliyu also interviewed candidate Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party about the same issues. Today we bring you excerpts from those interviews with a focus on security. First, Aliyu sits down with President Buhari.
How much success do you think you might have achieved in tackling Boko Haram in particular?
Well, when we came in, Boko Haram was occupying at least 7 or 8 local governments in the northeast. And as you know, we have 774 local governments in Nigeria, but the 3 states where Boko Haram was, Yobe, Borno, Adamawa. Now you can check from people in the northeast that Boko Haram is not holding any local government per se, but what they have devised was indoctrinating young people, especially girls, 15 years and below, wrap them up with explosive and get them to detonate it in places of worship, churches, mosques, marketplaces, motor parks, and so on. And they were shouting Allahu Akbar when they were doing that. But we disabuse the minds of Nigerians, especially Muslim community, that God is justice itself. You can't go and kill people who haven't been arrested, interrogated, prosecuted, and and you kill them and said God is great. You either don't believe that God is great or you don't know what you are saying. I think that helped us because a lot of people understand that the basic principle of Islam, and they find it difficult to be recruiting people again.
Well, viewers, Aliyu Mustafa speaking with Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. Aliyu also spoke with Nigerian opposition candidate Atiku Abubakar and asked him how he would handle the threat of Boko Haram terrorists if elected president.
I need to understand why is it that we have been fighting Boko Haram for nearly 10 years and we have not been able to contain, Boko Haram. As I have often said, we fought a civil war with a very trained army, a Biafran army, and we were able to subdue that army within 30 months. And here we are, a very large trained army belonging to Nigeria, and a bunch of young boys who just carry arms and just know how to shoot, not well trained, holding back the Nigerian military for 10 years. I cannot understand. Of course, I will have to study and try to investigate what's happening. Why should we be in this kind of position? From outside, I cannot sit down and tell you this is what is happening. Because in a war, there is more than what you see or what you read in the pages of newspapers or what you see on the television and so on and so forth. It's more than that.
Well, viewers, Aliyu Mustafa speaking with Nigerian opposition presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar. We'll have more on Aliyu's exclusive conversations with both President Buhari and Atiku Abubakar on Friday. We'll want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Still ahead on Africa 54, the next revolution in medicine, artificial intelligence and machine learning. But first, a look at Thursday's headlines.
La coalition Lamouka exige que la CENI retire instamment cette décision injustifiée et organise des élections sur toute l'étendue de la RDC.
You will see that you allow the enemy to come very close to you.
Est-ce que l'Internet des objets, les capteurs, les tout petits capteurs qui durent très longtemps, qui sont très peu chers, très peu énergivores?
They chose, okay, we'll record an illegally cut tree. We'll record an animal.
On Our Voices, we're talking about the news and issues you're talking about, sharing stories of development and growth across Africa,
around the world, and in our lives. Topics that inform, empower,
and change the rules.
It's time for Our Voices with me, Haiti Adams Fitzpatrick,
and Hadiza Kiari,
and Ayan Bior,
and Orion Itangi Shaka.
It's time for Our Voices.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Medu with a look at Kenyan abortion charities. Lino.
Well, Kenya has lifted a ban on the charity Mary Stopes carrying out abortions in the country after a review found it had not actively encouraged women and girls to have them. Kenyan authorities had directed Mary Stopes to suspend abortions and post-abortion care last month after complaints. A media campaign ran by the charity promoted terminations, a charge it has denied. Abortions are not permitted in Kenya unless a woman's life or health is in danger and emergency treatment is required. That's a rule campaigners say has led many women to resort to unsafe, illegal terminations. Mary Stopes says its media campaign was aimed at creating public awareness of Kenya's high rate of unsafe abortions. After an audit, Kenya's health ministry says the group was, quote, in total compliance with the country's laws. Female circumcision, a practice that opponents call female genital mutilation, has been a coming-of-age ritual among the Maasai tribe in Kenya for generations. But it is becoming less common in part because of a man who is trying to persuade tribe members to abandon the practice. Douglas Merite began his campaign about 10 years ago. He spoke to reporter Rael Ombuor from the Kimana settlement in southern Kenya.
Douglas Merite grew up in the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro as a member of the Maasai tribe.
I remember when I was in primary school, when I was a young boy, I would look around my class and see only Maasai boys. The girls were from other tribes, but rarely Maasai girls.
Merite says the girls were being married off at a young age after undergoing female circumcision, a traditional rite of womanhood among the Maasai. But activists call it female genital mutilation, FGM, because of the permanent damage caused by cutting a woman's clitoris. Lilian Ashepai underwent the procedure as a young girl and says excessive bleeding is common and some even die.
We know the girls who have not been circumcised. Sometimes they visit these homes. I ask, where is so-and-so? They say she is here. If she is walking properly, I know that she has not been circumcised. If the girl is not walking properly, we arrest the father and mother.
In the Maasai community, women are the ones who perform the cutting and therefore have the power to end the practice. So Merite works closely with Maasai women. He says since 2008, he has rescued over 100 girls from FGM, but had to first face off with his own people and tradition.
When we started this campaign, it was difficult. Others would ask, has Douglas gone mad? Even as they continued to speak. This was something that was deep in my heart. I did not give up. When I heard of any form of meeting in the area, I would come in and speak against FGM.
Campaigns like Merite's led to Kenya outlawing FGM in 2011. But the practice still occurs in remote rural areas, says Kimana's chief, Joseph Parumuat.
We work with Douglas to reach such girls. When we get that information, we have police on standby. We go to the location, arrest all those involved, the parents, the person who performed the act, then we take the girl to the rescue center.
According to a 2016 United Nations report, 1 in 5 females in Kenya have undergone FGM, but those numbers are going down. Authorities and campaigners, including Meritei, are promoting an alternative rite of passage where girls are graduated into womanhood without the cutting. Raya Lombor for VOA News, Kimana.
A new report by the World Health Organization indicates that road traffic deaths are continuing to rise, with an annual 1.35 million fatalities. The WHO Global Status Report on Road Safety 2018 highlights that traffic injuries are now the leading killer of children and young people aged 5 to 29. The report documents that despite an increase in the overall number of deaths, the rates of death relative to the size of the world population have stabilized in recent years. However, the risk of a traffic death remains 3 times higher in low-income countries than in high-income countries. The rates are highest in Africa and lowest in Europe. Worldwide, pedestrians and cyclists account for 26% of all traffic deaths, with 44% in Africa and 36% in the Eastern Mediterranean. Only 3 regions of the world are reporting a decline in traffic death rates: the Americas, Europe, and the Western Pacific.
The number should be going down because governments have committed to a 50% reduction over 5 years of road traffic deaths. And instead, we're seeing a slight increase still because we're not taking the necessary measures. We know what needs to be done. Good legislation on key risk factors such as drink driving, speeding, wearing seat belts or motorcycle helmets, and making sure this legislation is enforced. Appropriate infrastructure. So many new roads are still being built without sidewalks for kids to walk, or bicycle lanes, or even safe lanes for motorcyclists. And then making sure vehicles are safe. Airbags, seat belts, electronic stability control, these are all relatively cheap features that make vehicles much safer.
The World Health Organization's global status reports on road safety are released every 2 to 3 years and serve as the key monitoring tool for the Decade of Action for Road Safety 2011 to 2020. Now, doctors may soon have new ways of diagnosing and treating patients with the help of artificial intelligence and machine learning. A team of scientists at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles are developing a way of using machine learning to identify specific types of breast cancer tumors, and they say it's just the beginning of what the computer can do. VOA's Elizabeth Lee reports from Los Angeles.
This is a classroom for artificial intelligence, or AI. Its teacher, Rishi Rawat, is feeding the computer more samples of cancer cells.
They're like a computer brain, and you can put the data into them, and they will learn the patterns and the pattern recognition that's important for making decisions.
Decisions by doctors to determine the best treatment for their patients.
Machines are not going to take over the place of doctors. Computers will not treat patients, but they will help make certain decisions and look for things that the human brain can't recognize these patterns by itself.
For example, once a cancerous tumor is removed from a patient with breast cancer, the doctors still have to treat the patient to reduce the risk of recurrence. The type of treatment depends on the type of cancer and whether the tumor is driven by estrogen.
And so what the pathologist has to do is to count what percentage of the cells here are brown versus what percentage are not.
This process could take days or even longer.
In developing nations, they don't necessarily have access to do this at all. And so there's a great need there to be able to diagnose these cancers correctly.
The computer can do something better than just count cells. AI can recognize complicated patterns on how the cells are arranged, with the hope in the near future of making a quick and more reliable diagnosis that is free of human error.
Are they disordered? Are they in irregular spacing? What's going on exactly with the arrangement of cells in the tissue?
We can do this instantaneously for almost no cost in the developing world.
Scientists say the time is ripe for the marriage between computer science and cancer research.
All of a sudden, we have the computing power to really do it in real time. We have the ability of scanning a slide to high enough resolution so that a computer can see every little feature of the cancer. So it's a convergence of technology. We couldn't have done this, we didn't have the computing power to do this several years ago, but now it's all changed.
The research now is on breast cancer, But doctors predict artificial intelligence will eventually be used to help treat patients with all forms of cancer. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, Los Angeles.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @Lenore Moudou. Vincent, back to you.
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. I'll be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Bigger screens and smart artificial intelligence-powered cameras was the top theme for mobile phone makers in 2018 as Samsung, Apple, and Huawei competed for the top spot. Free-to-play video game Fortnite also became a worldwide phenomenon. With its regular updates and fan-themed gameplay, scientists claimed you can now conquer your fear of heights, flights, or phobias with an automated virtual reality therapy session. It followed a randomized study of 100 people in Britain. Experts say the smart home was coming, but it might be smarter to wait before buying, as the standard for the connections has not yet been set. And in other tech news, one small step for Sophia and one giant leap for artificial intelligence. The year began with humanoid robot Sophia taking her first steps thanks to a new partnership with a university robotics lab. Whether it was playing Scrabble or table tennis, man took on machine. Sony decided to teach its old dog new tricks and relaunched its popular robot dog, Aibo. Pet product makers touted their latest inventions, with thousands eager to see what's new in the business for furry friends. Robots that could lift heavy goods and both things together were being developed for use at building sites in Japan, where bugs increasingly do the repetitive, difficult jobs that human workers don't want to do. While in China, from operating theaters to firefighting and onto the battlefields, robots increasingly work alongside humans. Well, and finally, zero paperwork and zero bureaucracy are top goals in Estonia. The tiny nation's aim is to increase transparency and boost economic growth. They're already on their way there. The video calling service Skype is Estonia's most famous high-tech export. Last year, information and communications accounted for nearly 6% of the economy. Electronic authentication and digital signatures enable paperless communications across private and public sectors. Voting is done online, and computer apps tell parents if their children are handing in their homework, and that's what's trending today. That's our show for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good night.